Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Congratulations, you've done it. You found the champ dog. So it's going to be a quick intro today. It's a little late in the night for me to be sipping away with you guys, which is also part of the explanation behind the horrible lighting. I've been, my setup's changing a little bit as well. Hopefully the intro will look a little nicer in my next video. Anyway, I'm excited to get back to some TwilioQuest with you guys. So two things before we start. One, I'm very tired in this video. Like, I didn't actually realize how tired I was going into it, but it will affect me, and because of that, this video is a little bit shorter. It's around half an hour, which I think is a good time, to be honest. But anyway, yeah. And also, I've included in today's video some of the code that I'm using for the challenges. Now, the way I've done that is pretty loose and dirty. Like, I've literally just taken a screenshot of the notepad document and slapped that into the middle of the video. So it's, at the moment, it's messy, it's dirty. I just wanted to start. I'd rather start bad than not at all. And kind of as a proof of concept, so I need some feedback from you guys. Let me know if you find seeing the code helpful, if that adds value for you guys, or improves your experience, helps you follow along a bit better, whatever. Let me know if you like it. Let me know if you don't like it, because that's then going to impact how much effort I put into improving that. So I already have some ideas in the back of my mind. I know how to basically show you guys everything that I'm doing through just changing some settings on screen capture software. But there's a few other things I have to organize before I feel comfortable doing that. And I'd also need to like play around and iterate a bit on how to do that, and also need to be a little more mentally prepared going into the videos, because I tend to like just jump in and then open like 20 different screens, like trying to explain things and remember things, and even sometimes go back and rewatch my own video to try to remember how I tackled a certain problem, etc., etc. So I would need to put a little more effort into preparation for the videos, as well as changing a few other things. So let me know watching this video if you find being able to see my code helpful, and if so, I will try to find better ways to show you that rather than just like having an ugly jarring screenshot in the middle of a video. But yeah, if you guys aren't loving it, then that's time and energy I can put into something else. But yeah, that's all I wanted to touch on, and with that, let's jump into some video.
Okay, we're back. It's been ages. Wish me luck. Has there always been a tree in the middle of this section? I found 2 of 12 trees. Okay, yeah. Maybe it was there. Anyway, JavaScript test lab. Here we go. It's been ages. I remember nothing. If I recall correctly, I'm up to this here section. Use the electrical engineer's activation code and your knowledge of loops and iteration. Is that the same as the one I needed here? No, that's the botanists. So I assume I need to go to this space off to the right here. Theoretical physicist's activation code as well, which is probably up north. Yeah. Okay, but let's just go through this in the old anti-clockwise. Arrays are a common data structure you'll encounter while programming. In order to navigate this freighter, you'll need to learn how they work. Cool. We're just going to explore a bit first, see what's up here. Okay, absolutely nothing. Cool. You enter the east wing of the lab, which appears to be an airlock used by freight-carrying vessels. The research team's engineer must have been trapped aboard the supply ship after the explosion in the lab. Scanning recent shipping manifests, you see that the freighter currently docked with the station is called the Infinite Loop. Its systems are controlled by JavaScript logic that uses arrays or lists of items. The control mechanisms blocking your path will require you to write JavaScript code that uses arrays in a variety of ways. The sentence was harder to say than you might imagine. Taking inventory of the situation. This laser beam was engaged after the infinite loop's cargo inventory was accidentally erased. You'll need to fix it to progress further. So create a file called freighterinventory.js in your code folder. Inside this file, declare a variable called inventory. This variable should contain an array with the following 5 strings in order: ductypium ore, uranium rod, ruthenium isotopes, concave lens, and refraction panel. Once your code creates a variable called inventory with the items above, click the hack button. Let's show some help. All the challenges in this area require you to master the concept of arrays. An array is a list of objects in a particular order. Check out the array reference on MDN for more information. To complete this objective, create a file called freighterinventory.js in your code folder. Your code folder is located here. Inside freighterinventory.js, you will need to declare an array variable called inventory, as described in the objective. It should contain 5 strings in the same order they are listed on the previous tab. Once you've done this, click Hack to validate. We've got a few helpful links here. Creating arrays. This is going to open a website. I think I understand this. Alright guys, give me a few minutes and I'll be back and get this laser open. Okay, so I'm about to put up on the screen my initial attempt at this code. It's super simple and straightforward. I'm kind of confused. This seems too simple, and I don't know. I just don't want it to be this easy. Anyway, you're about to see my first attempt, and we'll see if it works. Okay. It truly is that easy. Wonderful. I actually had some extra code added initially based on what I was reading, because I'm just so used to copying the format and just copying what I've seen from the sample code that Twilio gives me, that I actually ended up adding a bunch of stuff because I hadn't actually read properly what I was seeing online. And it was actually teaching me, or showing me rather, functions you can do to sort through an array by number. I thought I had to include that, but yeah, it really is just as simple as let this equal those things. Cool. Introduction to arrays. What is our next challenge? Learn to access the data inside arrays using indexes. So I have a feeling this is going to be that extra code that I added in and then took out. The second seal of the airlock is blocked off by another security barrier. The JavaScript code that you'll need to fix here is a function that processes shipping manifests. Specifically, there's a function that takes an array of strings as an argument and returns a new string, which is the result of sticking the first and last items of the array together. You'll need to get this function working properly before you can enter the infinite loop. Create a file called addfirsttolast.js in your code folder. In it, define a function of the same name, called addfirsttolast. This function should take one argument, an array of strings. Pardon me. Your function should return a string, which is the first and last items in the input array, concatenated together. I'm going to press pause and find out how to pronounce that word and what it means. Concatenate. Concatenated together. So it's basically sticking one thing to the end of another. So if you concatenated snow and ball, you'd have snowball. You learned something today. Some example code you can use as a starting point is provided in the Help tab. Here are some example inputs and outputs. First, second, third. First, third. Golden terrier, golden terrier. Anything like a golden retriever? Cheerio, cheerio, cheerio. and space will give you space. So that is because it's sticking the first and last items together. So first, second, third, it only takes the first and last and sticks them together. Cheerio, the first and the last are the same, so it becomes Cheerio, Cheerio. Once your code can process the array as described above, click the hack button to move forward. Let's get some help. To complete this objective, create a file called addfirsttolast.js in your code folder. Your code folder is located here. Inside addfirsttolast.js, you'll need to define a function called addFirstToLast that takes a single argument, an array of strings. Your function will then need to return a string, which is the result of concatenating the first and last items in the array together. Here's some example code you can use as a starting point. Function addFirstToLast input array. Let first and last equal blank. Only execute this code if the array has items in it. If input array .length is greater than 0. Change the line below. What should it be? First and last equals input array 999 and input array 999. Return first and last. The lines of code below will test your function when you run it from the command line with Node.js. Yeah. I really don't understand any of that because I was just speaking it out loud instead of reading it. Different parts of the brain, I think. To make this code work, you'll need to access the items in the array at the proper indexes. Read about how to do that here. An index is a number that indicates a particular location within the array, first to last. In programming, indexes like this one always start at 0. Once you have modified your function to work as described, click the hack button to check your work. So we're going to take a very brief pause. I'm going to try and wrap my head around this, come up with what I think is the solution, and we'll be back in a jiffy. Okay, so let's see if that worked. It did not. Okay. At first to last returned nan instead of expected value first third when called with parameters first, second, third. Okay. I get it. Kind of. I don't really get it, but I've tried to link this back to the actual inventory because in my mind these things are linked. But that's actually not what this exercise is asking me to do. It's asking me to do an unrelated thing, nothing to do with the inventory thing that I just did. Very good. Very good. Alright, we did it. So it's just a little syntax error on my part that stopped me from getting it the first time. I'll show you what I mean. So you notice between those two screenshots, one I used input array in both and one I used array or ARR length. I copy pasted that off one of the websites Twilio sent me to look at. And obviously they're using a different name to refer to, like their internal naming and referencing system is different to TwilioQuest one. So the ARR is what they used instead of input array. I'm also having some problems with my PowerShell. For some reason, the instructions they're giving me here aren't functioning in PowerShell. PowerShell does not understand them for some reason, and PowerShell is what I use to test my code. So because it's not understanding these testing instructions, I'm not even able to see, like, it's not returning me a useful error message. Where normally if it understood these instructions, it would return me an error message that I could then use to diagnose the problem in my code. It keeps returning error messages based on the instruction that I'm trying to input. Like, it doesn't understand something about the about how this part is constructed. is just making its head explode, and it won't work. I don't know what's going on, and again, without the in-depth knowledge of what's going on as just a beginner, all I can see is, again, TwilioQuest has presented me with something that doesn't work. I'm sure there's other things going on, and someone with way more experience in this sort of world could tell me what's going on, why it's happening, or what I could be using to make this work, but I don't have that skill. So again, it's presented me with the appearance that TwilioQuest is just messing me up, which yeah, I'm not a big fan of. I'm not saying that's what's happening in this specific instance. It certainly seemed way more like that in the previous times that I've spoken about this. But yeah, in this instance, I don't think they are necessarily, but to someone with my level of expertise, which is to say none, it's certainly doing a very good imitation of TwilioQuest messing me over by giving me something that's wrong. But anyway, we've cleared this hurdle, so let's move on. It could even also just be an issue with my PowerShell, or it could be that those particular commands only work when structured and worded like that in a particular program. But yeah, moving on. Array built-in functions. After stepping aboard the infinite loop, you see that the explosion has also caused several of their own systems to malfunction, including this barrier. You'll have to fix some of the array processing code aboard the ship in order to access the areas within. You find the bit of code causing this barrier to remain closed. Like the previous barriers you encountered, you'll need to fix a misbehaving JavaScript function that deals with array processing, slicing and sorting. Create a file called getFirstAmountSorted.js in your code folder. Inside it, create a function called getFirstAmountSorted. This function will take two arguments. The first argument should be an array. The second argument should be a number. Your function must do the following. Begin by sorting the input array, the first argument, into alphabetical order. Once the input array is sorted, return a new array which is the first n elements of the input array, where n is the value of the second argument to your function. Example usage of your function. Constant output array equals getFirstAmountSorted, bird, dog, cat, ant, 2. Output array is now ant and bird. I don't understand that at all. Because if it's 2, it should return the first and the second. It even says this down here. If array is third, second, first, number 2, first, second. But it does say the first n elements of the input array. And the first elements of this array is bird and dog. The first elements of this array is third and second. This makes no sense to me. I don't understand this at all. Again, this seems doing a very good imitation of TwilioQuest, just messing with me. So I'm willing to accept that here it's just because I'm really tired and my brain's not understanding something, but I just wanted to touch on that. So in that last exercise, I spent infinitely more time trying to solve the problem with the input commands than I did with my code. Once I ignored trying to test it with the input commands and just used the hack function on TwilioQuest to look at it, it took me like 2 seconds to sort out the code. So in that sense, it's actually really getting in the way of me learning the thing that I'm trying to learn here, because like my time and attention has been so focused on a problem that I get no value from solving. And I wasn't able to solve it. The problem was that command doesn't work on PowerShell. I don't know why. I don't know how to find out why. But that's been my main takeaway, because that's where most of my focus, time, and effort and energy went, was on that issue rather than the code. So whatever coding I just did to get through that last thing, like, it almost doesn't exist in my mind, because disproportionately I was focusing on something else, which is not the point. So I'm finding that to be an increasing source of frustration. I don't understand this, and I wish they worded it or like included an explanation here, because again, I can't focus on the task at hand because I'm just not understanding this other thing. So I've got to get through this other layer of obfuscation to actually get to the thing I'm meant to be learning. But let's look at help for now. The goal of this objective is to familiarize you with the functions that are built into array objects to help you work with the data in those arrays. Specifically, this objective will require that you use the following functions. Sort, which changes an existing array, mutates it by sorting all the elements within it, and slice, which creates a new array, which is a subset of a given array. So we've got some starter code here. Let's take a look at it. Function get first amount sorted. Input array, number of items. Step 1, sort input array alphabetically. Step 2, create an array which contains the first n items of the sorted array. The number of items is provided in the number of items variable. Step 3, return the new array you created at step 2. Okay, so this makes sense now. I understand why it's giving these things, because instead of just going off this, it's sorting it alphabetically and then giving me the first two of the new list. Okay, and it does specify that there. I just didn't absorb that little piece of information. So cool. This makes sense now. I understand what happened there. As I said, I did say I'm willing to accept that that's more to do with me being tired, and it is. I just didn't take in some of what I was reading there. So that's fine. But my point still stands that in the previous exercise, I don't feel like I've learned anything. And if you ask me like right now, like 5 minutes later, about the coding element of that, I can't tell you anything. I've forgotten all of that information because so much of my time was focused on the testing commands that didn't work. As I recall, okay, let's actually see. So if I can remember, I copy pasted the text that TwilioQuest gave me, and then I had to figure out how to get the last item in the array, which is a command of like input array, in this case input array dot length -1. So yeah, it's just referencing the array -1 because it starts at 0. So array length. And I started with ARR because that was the naming protocol that the website I was looking at used when it was explaining it. And I had to change it to input array, which is the naming protocol that TwilioQuest and therefore my code was using. And it was input array.length is the function which returns the overall length of the array. So to specifically get the last item, it's input array.length -1 because 0 is the first item. Cool. So I do remember what happened, but I had to stop and think about that. Whereas, you know, I've been ranting for several minutes about what was going wrong with the command. Like, that is way more front of mind for me. It just, I don't know, little things like that, I think really get in the way of learning. But like, I understand my brain doesn't necessarily work the same as yours or most people's, but yeah, I do think little things like that are a way when like little things don't work the way that your audience needs them to. I think that's a way bigger obstacle to learning than people may think. Having also been in a position where I've had to teach and train many people over the years in my actual work, it can really just get in the way of people learning the thing that you're trying to teach them when little things that they should be able to take for granted don't function correctly. It can just like completely undermine the thing that is being taught, because that becomes the focal point, and then it's very difficult to get past that and return to the thing that you're actually trying to learn. Anyway, just my 2 cents. So now that I kind of understand what's going on there, I need to sort and slice. So inside this file, I'm pasting the following starter code. Function get first amount sorted, input array, number of items. So step 1, sort input array alphabetically. Step 2, create an array. Step 3, return the new array you created at step 2. The lines of code below test your function when you execute your... So this line here is the only active piece of code here. My understanding is all of these things are just instructions, and they don't actually, like, even if I include it in the notepad file, they don't actually get executed by whatever program is trying to run this. So I'm going to just, again, I'll be back in a second. I'm going to play around with that and see if I understand this correctly, if this is all just that one line of code. Get first amount sorted did not return an array as expected. Okay. I may know how to fix that. Alright, I've done it. I've got through this puzzle, and I'll be honest. This has taken over an hour. This is closer to 2 hours than 1. Possibly even more than 2 hours. I've completely lost track of time. Now, it might not take you that long. I've disappeared down a rabbit hole of trying to figure out why my commands aren't working in PowerShell. I can't figure that out. So I'm sort of doing this with one hand tied behind my back, in that I can't open up PowerShell and test my code. So I just have to sort of take a stab in the dark, run it through TwilioQuest, try to figure it out. I will pause for a second and show you guys my finished, well, the code that worked for me. So sorry, just bringing my code up. I know, I'm hoping at some point in the future to work out a better solution so that you guys can see everything that I can see. As it is, I'm just taking screenshots of my code and loading that up and putting that in the video. So I have to stop recording, put up the screenshot, go back to recording. So I could just do a straight up screen record, but there's a few other things that I want to get organized before I'm comfortable to do that. So you may have noticed, and you can just rewind back to look at the code if you need to, the .sort command sorts input array. I originally didn't have the 2 brackets, so it wouldn't function properly, but it will automatically sort the items in the array alphabetically, treating everything in there as a string. So you can use an extra command to then save the output of that as a different thing. So I could, like, have let sorted input array equal input array.sort. But there's not a strict need to, because it doesn't just sort and output the strings. It actually, wow, I really gobbled that sentence. I'm sorry, guys. It doesn't, just sort it as a function and then move on with its life. It actually moves the items in the array to sort them. It doesn't just show you what the sorting would be. It does actually sort them and move them. So you don't need to save that output sorted array as something else and as a different thing and then reference that new thing, because the original input array is already sorted in that way. So then you can just tell it to return the input array. The slice command will basically create a new array that is a subset of the existing array. And because the array numbering starts at 0, you can just do 0 and whatever the number input is, and it will return between 0 and that number. And you can like adjust it for different purposes. So if I wanted to do between the second item and whatever it was put in, I'd do like 1 and that. But again, because it starts at 0, you can just leave it at 0 and number of items. So when you're doing these slices, whatever the end number is, it won't include that one. So it'll include everything up to it. So if I have like 2, it'll give me items 0 and 1, which is 2 items, which is why it works. I hope that makes sense to you guys. It makes perfect sense to me. So if I wanted to get 2 items, I can just put in 2 and then it'll give me item 0, item 1. If I wanted 3 items, it'll give me item 0, item 1, item 2. So that's why I can just use the number of items input directly instead of having to do that -1, because the -1 is kind of already included from the fact we start counting at 0 instead of counting at 1. Now, as I said, this has taken me a really long time to sort out, and I've had a lot of problems. I can't figure out how to get PowerShell to work, and I was trying to do that and I just disappeared down this rabbit hole, and then I was like trying to figure something else out and disappeared down that rabbit hole. So I've actually been at this for freaking ages. So I'm gonna wrap this up here. It is going to be pretty short, I'm aware of that, but like I've also got editing time to consider, and I kind of underestimated how tired I am getting into this, which is why I ended up disappearing down these rabbit holes, and then like I had to take a break because I was just completely frazzled. So all of this to say, I'm not really in the right frame of mind to be doing this today, and you may have noticed that with the mistakes that I made in the earlier puzzle, where it seemed like Twilio was messing up, but actually like I just mistyped something, if I can even remember what that is. But also this PowerShell thing is really throwing me for a loop, and I don't know how to sort that out. And it will probably take me a few hours just to get to the bottom of that problem, and a lot of trial and error. So unfortunately, I kind of feel like I'm going to have to, from this point, keep going in blind if PowerShell isn't working, because there isn't another good option for me. But anyway, as I said, I don't think this is going to happen very well for me today. So we're going to cut this video short, stop here, and I'll get back to you guys soon. Hopefully I'll be a little more rested and refreshed in the next video. But as always, thank you so much for tuning in. You've been brilliant. I've been the Champ Dog, and I'll catch you real soon.